Please stand by as we beam aboard our next presenters. Paramount Cybersecurity Capabilities Engineer, Michael Baker, and Cribl Staff Customer Success Engineer, Alex Scherer.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
All right. I'm doing pretty good. Let's quickly talk about who we are, just a brief introduction, and we'll dive right into the talk that you very graciously decided to give us. Quickly, just in a few words, your role with your company.
Again, Mike Baker, Paramount Skydance, cybersecurity engineer.
Okay, and I'm Alex Scherer. I've been working with you at Paramount Skydance as your customer success engineer on the Cribl side. So I've been helping you kind of day-to-day doing the normal kind of knocking out tech items, listening to the strategies that you are having to work through, and helping you to design the current and future course of how you deal with your data layer. And specifically, I think today, we're going to talk about the issues in getting your security search solution in place, which revolved a lot around your data lake.
Absolutely.
So, quickly, run me through the timeline leading up to where we are today with your current data lake version and search version. Where did you start out?
We started out pretty early. We came on 2020. About 2022 is when we tried out our data lake strategy. And then 2023 is when we migrated over to Cribl Cloud. We started really ramping up for Cribl Search in 2024.
Okay. And there were certainly some challenges along the way in all of that we've worked through and had to deal with, some realizations that we had to work across.
Absolutely.
Main ones being, starting out when we were first implementing the data partitioning itself, and then once data partitioning was sorted out, how on earth to get your end users who needed to be able to access that data to adopt a new tool. So briefly, we'll kind of go over data partitioning, which strictly speaking is just how we break the stream of data into smaller, manageable chunks, how we structure it inside object storage. This, although it seems like it would be something that might not have as much of an effect, I think you personally have discovered that it can have quite a bit of effect. Even small changes to the partitioning expression end up having a negative downstream effect. An example of one here, which has indicators for time-based fields, source-related fields, and any other kind of highly queried field that are all part of the expression. This is an example of one, not necessarily what you used, but just to show how data is organized inside a bucket.
Right.
When Paramount started out, the issues that we wanted to deal with and the ones that we wanted to address were a couple. Time granularity, as you saw on the partitioning expression, is one of the things where without the hour partitioning expression, you have to scan the whole directory. You don't have any sort of fine-tuning available, and you are always getting at least 24 hours worth of time. But with minute, too many files get created, and you end up having too much search left in order to do. And the other half of that was the variable ordering, which are any variables that require additional scanning. And initially, the thought was that you needed the variables in the partitioning expression in order to neatly divide it, because going into it, you had told me that the thought was that you needed to be able to organize the bucket in a way that when you were looking through it, it made logical sense, which makes perfect sense if you're using it strictly for object storage, but it doesn't necessarily work so well for a search provider because it results in excess cardinality.
Right.
So When Paramount started out, it looked something like this, right?
Correct.
Domain, function, tool, and business unit were all the leading variables. Year, month, and day were the only indicators of time, plus there was an additional host field.
Correct.
And this, while again, it made sense at the time in terms of if you were to try and look as a human through an S3 bucket, this makes perfect sense. You start with domain, function, tool, business unit, you can quickly drill down inside of a bucket as if you were double-clicking folders, and it makes great sense.
Yep.
But the search tool doesn't do well with this.
No, it did not.
So the variables before the time, unless these fields end up being explicitly called out in every search, it has to go through every subfolder where this isn't specified. So unnecessary events being scanned every time you fail to call out these
Big
filters.
scan, yep.
Without the time partitions, which are not broken down to the hour, we're getting 24 hours back every time, no matter how granular you try to go with the time picker. And the high cardinality field of host ended up creating more additional files past the time picker. So you ended here.
Yep.
And it looks like it's kind of a bit of a drastic reduction that this is the only thing left. It's just date. And this ends up working in a very specific way because you were instead constructing your data lake strategy around the tool that was recursing it and less for human use.
Right.
We removed the variables from the beginning of the partitioning scheme. We added hour, and we removed the high cardinality field at the end. And in your own words, describe to me what the experience was like prior with the first partitioning expression and what it was like after we made this change.
Prior was very time consuming, especially when somebody was going in trying to find a particular data set. It would look for every one of those little files. So it was excruciatingly long. Afterwards, once we got rid of that and we scaled down a little bit and streamlined it, it significantly increased the time that a SOC engineer or whoever was looking for a particular piece of data would be able to find it exponentially.
Excellent. So the two components of how we set this up are in stream and in search. In stream, when you're creating an S3 destination, it is just as simple where you change the partitioning expression and you simplify it down to simply the year, month, day, hour. This is the first half because this is what actually creates the structure in the bucket when you're sending it to it. But there was an additional concern.
Mm-hmm.
And the concern was about what was this change going to have in the impact of the existing data.
Right. And thank God it was seamless. It was behind the scenes. Nobody noticed that there was 2 different buckets and 2 different things it was searching through. So it made it a lot easier for the teams to come in and look through it and not have to look through multiple different buckets. It was seamless and they were able to go through.
Yep. Being able to add the 2 versions, the 2 iterations of the partitioning schema let you retain everything that came before all the way through to its expiration, and then seamlessly pivot into the new partitioning schema. And as you told it to me, anyone who tried to search new data instantly saw the performance characteristics change.
Absolutely.
But that wasn't the end of the ride.
No, it wasn't.
So one of the problems I think that any person has to deal with when they've finally got a new tool configured to their specification and to their satisfaction is how do you then deliver that to an end user and say, hey, I've been working on this thing all this time. I know you use Splunk and you're used to using Splunk, but I have this new thing and I can let you search much further back. Why don't you use this tool, right? And this was something, to be clear, this project of modernizing your data lake strategy and being able to reduce your costs by implementing this data tiering inside of S3 was something that was given to you and something that you had to execute on. So not exactly something that you were in a position to resist.
Correct.
And the part of that directive makes sure that the tool to realize that goal, made it into the hands of the people using it. But as you and I both know, that sometimes you come to a room and you say, I've got this new tool for you. It looks nothing like your old one. It might look similar, but I need you to start using it. And it winds up in sentiments very similar to this one. And it can be extremely frustrating for new users who are just trying to execute a job to be somewhat forced into working with a new tool. Resistance to change is obviously a multifaceted issue, and it's not always necessarily the easiest thing in the world to address the psychological element of, hey, I'm not trying to take your job, I'm not trying to make things difficult, I'm just trying to deliver something that I was asked to deliver.
Right.
So successfully navigating change requires understanding and addressing kind of the human factor. And there's a couple of strategies that we can come up with, I think, that we tried to help you come up with to specifically address the concerns of your end users and to work with them to get past the initial resistance to adoption. So the first of which you had already worked on, which was when you had started working with the tool, the partitioning expression had led to a lot of pushback because of the performance.
Yes.
And the teams were used to Splunk, which, let's be honest, is still a very, very performant product in its category, is still very much top of its class, and they were used to that levels of performance. By restricting it down to 90 days and pushing the rest to S3, you solve the problem of retention and licensing and cost, but until you worked past the problems of the data lake performance because of the partitioning expression, and you eventually did.
Absolutely.
But there were some concerns there, and you had to address them. New query language is the other. Anyone who has tried to pivot from Splunk to KQL, well aware.
Roadblock.
Yep. And they're not necessarily always. It's similar enough to become extremely frustrated when you go to input something that looks like it should work in Splunk and it's not quite right for KQL. And the last thing was workflows. And this is something where you did quite a bit of work to make sure that you listened to the specific concerns of how they were using Splunk to deliver them something to look at in terms of, hey, I know that you need this sort of result. And you had worked on it to make sure that you gave them dashboards and searches that imitated those exact same results.
Yep, which took me a little while in the beginning. Like I'm gonna refer back to that AI conference we just had. Once that came about, made it a lot easier. I was taking, maybe a couple hours to change from the SPL to the KQL. When that Copilot came out, my quick little transformation in there, and it spit it right out. I was like, wow, this is great. So once I made the save dashboards and the save searches, they started to come along.
And Copilot coming in clutch there, it is very transformative when I think your end user was presented with the old and the new, or rather with Splunk and with the Cribl Search alternative, and they realized that the bridge that they had to span was not that wide at all.
Right.
So the transition with the immediate solutions, and this is exactly what you ended up doing. You gave them the ability to, with the adapting SPL to KQL, you gave them the ability to do long-term retention querying because of the needed sacrifice on the Splunk side. You enabled them to do the search over the data lake and give them much longer term periods of results. You listened to their concerns about, hey, we need to be able to visualize this data and we don't necessarily know how to work within the tool. So you provided them with dashboards for investigations.
Yep.
It's more than just the searches, but also the ways to visualize it. And it's a third use case that is kind of a stopgap measure that kind of satisfies the best of both worlds. If there is very little compromise to be made, that you can simply use search to narrow the field of events that you pull out and do a rehydrate, a search and send.
Search and send. Love that.
Simply in case that there is no other option but to use Splunk for that particular moment, that particular threat investigation, it always remains an option in your back pocket.
Yes.
The things that I think you and I both agree ended up working in the end for getting end users on board were the communication. You spent a lot of time talking to your end users. You spent a lot of time listening to their objections, to the specific things that they needed, and the specific problems they were having. Delivering on those single issues one at a time, showing them that you were engaged, showing them that you were open and willing to provide those single item deliverables, ended up being a multiplicative sort of endeavor and ended up being in a sum of all the things combined, showing that it was a teamwork effort and ended up empowering your users quite effectively. On top of that, you definitely directed them towards Cribl University.
Absolutely.
The self-directed learning, the documentation, the sandboxes. We also we had Community Slack open for all of the people who are using the tool. One of the things that we love doing is being able to collaborate with not just customers, but basically any Cribl user at all. And in the case of Paramount Skydance, we opened a space and said, hey, if anyone needs to ask questions or needs help or needs anything like that, please ask questions. And this is something that we'll be more than happy to provide as part of a collaboration thing. And getting back to the thing that you love so much, Cribl Copilot.
Yes.
The ability to use natural language rather than having to know the syntax. One of the nicest things about it is that over time, as you use Copilot, you use natural language, and it will just provide you back the correct syntax. And I think even you've said, it not necessarily will get you 100% of what you need, but just watching how it provides syntaxed examples based on natural language means that you can instantly iterate on it and arrive most of the way at the solution. And it basically serves as an iterative training loop where it always spits out something that's, oh, yep, that's exactly what I would expect. Oh, I'll tweak that right there to make it slightly nicer.
Absolutely.
And ends up being a very, very useful tool overall. The lessons learned. The things that I think when you went on this journey and we started putting together this talk, tried to summarize all of the things that make up this journey in general. The data structure itself had to come first.
Yes.
The optimization and partitioning ended up being one of the biggest showstoppers until it was addressed. When you started to use Cribl Search, the data lake partitioning just made the performance unusable, untenable, and basically a non-starter as far as your end users were concerned.
Correct.
So making sure that that partitioning schema was addressed was the first hurdle and probably one of the most important hurdles.
Paramount.
Yeah, paramount hurdles, indeed. The enablement of your users, once we've got past this initial performance hurdle, making sure that they were provided with every tool that we could possibly do, addressing those single cases one at a time, providing them training, documentation, and support, just so that they had every possible avenue to unblock them. And from a human perspective, there are always going to be people, I think, that are never going to be satisfied.
Yep.
But I don't think that that's a way that you can possibly conduct your business from a human perspective. You have to provide for everyone, and those who are willing to adapt will adapt, and those who are more stubborn will eventually come around.
Correct.
And the use cases, taking the approach of solving specific problems, coming at them one at a time, and just knocking out the specific items for all of the individual security use cases, ended up being, again, an additive thing where they realized, oh, okay, we've seen it, we're starting to see the pattern, we're starting to see enough where we can start to self-actualize, and you no longer had to lead the horse to water.
True.
Mike, thank you so much for being here. Do you have any other thoughts before we turn it over?
Interactive dashboards. If you can build up some interactive dashboards for your users, that makes it quite easy, especially seeing how a lot of our SOC just throw an IP in there, and some of the Daves helped me create a dashboard like that. They're just doing it IP address in, email address, whatever they're particularly looking for, makes it quite easy.
Excellent. Shout out to the Cribl team for helping me out there. Mike, thanks for having us, and we hope that your future endeavors in Cribl Search and Lake are just as successful as the ones so far.
Absolutely. Thank you.